Welcome back, everyone, to Blockcast Show. Today, we have a guest who has built a world-leading institution that provides trading software for trading participants in the crypto industry, the CEO and founder of CoinRoutes, Ian Weisberger. Now, Ian is a good friend of mine, and we met many years ago, so I'm really glad that we have him today on the show. You're going to learn what does it mean to build a company from scratch to one of the leading organizations in the crypto industry. How does the trading environment really work? What do world's biggest traders need to use to successfully execute their strategies? How does CoinRoutes provide software and technology that helps them achieve that? We'll also learn what is Ian doing here in the region and in Dubai. What are his thoughts about the progress in the US when it comes to crypto, when it comes to the markets, and when it comes to stablecoins? I'm Anton Golub, today with my co-host, Dr. Demetrios Zamboglou. Welcome to Blockcast Show and have a blast with Ian.
Well, look, I mean, this market is great for the Americans. They can now sell all their debt to everyone with all the stablecoins. Right?
So not only buy Bitcoin, but also to sell stablecoins.
Yeah, I mean, look, think about it. You have, 300 billion now, and there's going to be more market cap. And basically, they're mandating that all of the reserves of these stablecoins has to go into U.S. government bonds. And so they found a buyer for their bonds. So they're actually happy to allow it. The business has been doing extremely well over the last, call it 2 years. In this cycle. We've grown considerably. We have a strong cash position and balance sheet, and we invested in Bitcoin at 30K, started buying more. We've done pretty well. I can't complain. We really believe in the vision, and so yeah, that's been good. But ultimately, look, we want to partner with people. We want to build an ecosystem. We love that. But now what we're seeing is more of a use for payments. I mean, I know as well. We pay contractor. If you want to pay a contractor in Japan, good luck sending them a wire. It's going to be 2 days. The bank's going to charge you multiple percent in spread. It's kind of a nightmare. And so for me, whenever we can as a business pay in stablecoins, we will do so. I mean, I noticed now versus a couple of years ago, at least even normal vendors like law firms, corporate service providers are willing to take stablecoins. And as more and more people are willing to take stablecoins, it's going to become more and more used for actual real world economic benefit and not just trading. And so I think the more it gets used in the real world, the more liquidity there's going to be. And it's kind of just this flywheel. There are some of the Latin American countries where you are paying for things in Tether, right? And it's just a normal thing to have cryptocurrency on your smartphone. And now even people in the US and these developed nations are obviously adopting it because they're seeing the money coming in and out and all the revenue it can bring. But ultimately, I saw early on that banking and payments was a really important area and needed to be built on. And so when cryptocurrency came along, I knew that I was all in. I think that these asset classes are converging. We have crypto clients that are now trading equities and they're using our software to do that. We have also they're trading equities and they're using us to do it. And then people that were only trading equities now want to trade crypto. And I think ultimately these asset classes are kind of coming together. So we already list futures. We already are able to trade equities in addition to crypto. I think really coming up with a consolidated solution that can service all of these different asset classes in one system with a consolidated view of the market is the direction that we're moving in.
So Ian, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you. And I think also very special because, in the preparation for the podcast, we also heard that you had a big acquisition later. So we'll be happy to discuss that. But, really always great to have a professional coming from the trading industry who understands trading very much. I think a lot of our audience, Demetrios, appreciates, trading expertise. So it's going to be a blast.
I would like to say young, successful person. Is very, very nice to have him in the studio because he will be, even without wanting, motivating the audience. So it's very nice to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I think I remember meeting you, Anton, years ago, maybe around 2019, when we had been in business for a couple of years. And it's just amazing how much the industry has changed in that kind of short time and the time scales that this industry operates on.
And I remember, those early days, like 2018, 19, looks a lot different than today. You have to agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
So hopefully, maybe you can then in that context, share a little bit what does your organization do? How did you start? I mean, I remember and I know very well what.
Maybe it's better to find out this story. How you two guys met first?
How you two guys met? Oh, you want to? I
can show you my perspective. So I remember this podcast opportunity was offered to me, and they said the name Anton Golub, and I said that sounds familiar. I know I've met this guy at some point, so it's a bit serendipitous.
Yes, I do remember. Actually, I went to New York. I think it was 2018 and 19. There was one of these finance conference, trading conference, but it was more towards traditional finance rather than digital assets back in the day. And then I remember I was told I need to meet you and your team. I think you were starting in the early days building software and technology for execution, right? For order routing. Yeah. And I remember I came to your office. Even back then it was a very big office, so I'm sure it's not a lot bigger. So this is how I remember it, you know. Yeah. And you know, would be great to hear, you know, how was your journey since we met back in.
Yeah, I think like every startup, usually you have to find your product market fit, and it could take some time to do that. And I think we really hit our stride probably somewhere around the time that we met you in terms of finding clients and finding, you know, that product market fit. I think I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, and they come to me and say, oh, I have this great idea and I'm building this, you know, crypto Web3 project. And ultimately it always comes down to, can you build a product that customers will either buy or use in some way in some reasonable amount of time. And so with us, when we started, we made sure we got early feedback. Our first client was actually a company called Bitcoin Swiss. They ended up being our seed investor. And we have a good relationship with them to this day. But
sorry to interrupt you, Bitcoin Swiss is actually the first ever crypto company in Switzerland. Yeah. Founded, I'm sure you know Niklas as well.
Yeah. He's such a cool guy.
Sorry to interrupt you. Sorry to interrupt you.
I remember we had dinner with them in Switzerland, and we were just starting out. It was me and two co-founders, you know, and at the end of the dinner, we weren't sure what was going to happen, but he shook my hand and he said, Ian, welcome to the family. Yes. It was super, super awesome to, you know, have that experience after building for a year plus.
And for Bitcoin Swiss, you build execution software, or I mean, Bitcoin Swiss being one of the clients, you build like an execution order routing software, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, look, the product has evolved a lot in the 7+ years that we've been around, but ultimately the core product is a router so that you can get the best price across all the crypto exchanges. Since then, we've added things like spread trading, where you can capture funding rate arbitrage. So, you know, you're selling the future, buying the spot, and you're rolling the futures positions across exchanges. That's a really popular product. A number of hedge funds use us for doing that. And then also brokers and individuals for moving positions around exchanges, because you can't like actually move a future position from one to the other. You have to close it and open it. And so being able to do that effectively is really important.
Okay. And maybe also then you can share, because, you know, in the crypto space, we have this very peculiar situation is that you have hundreds of exchanges. Some are a bit more relevant, some are a bit less, but this is quite different from the traditional markets, because in the equity markets, you have like 13 exchanges, the dark pools and so on. But in the crypto space, you have hundreds of exchanges. So how do you navigate this from a
you know, what's really interesting is actually like up until the launch of Hyperliquid and a lot of these perp DEXs, the liquidity, like 90+% of the liquidity was on the top 4 centralized exchanges, right? And so at one point, Binance was 90% of our volume a couple of years back. And we've now significantly diversified to different exchanges, you know, on the top exchanges, but recently Hyperliquid and to, you know, some extent Aster and Lighter, like these perp DEXs, have gotten a lot of traction. And so it actually is even more important to use a product like ours, where you can find the best liquidity and get the best price and make sure you're not getting taken advantage of if the prices go out of whack on those venues. And so actually now the liquidity is fragmenting a bit more. It used to be that it was very concentrated on the top centralized venues. Now you have these new decentralized venues and the liquidity is kind of fragmented. But ultimately, I would say the top 10 exchanges on any given day is like 90% plus of the volume, right? And so you're only going to use these smaller exchanges for some of the new meme coin launches or whatever, where you can get liquidity.
I think the audience is very, very interested in finding out who is Ian, where you were brought up, who is your family, did you go to a university? You have the American accent, as we hear you here, to understand what is your link with America, because we are fascinated with what is happening now in the world, and especially America is driving a lot on this vision of what blockchain can achieve.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's amazing that a sitting president of a large country can drive markets like with one tweet. It's really crazy what's been happening, and it's good for the world. I think my perspective is a bit interesting because I am American and we've been building in America for a number of years, but we're also a global business. We have a big office in Dubai. We have an office in London. We're a global business with offices all over the world. But ultimately, I think the way that this market is evolving, it's a global kind of market. But at the same time, it's a bit bifurcated in different regions. So in the last cycle, you saw a lot of the global exchanges launching US-centric exchanges. And to some extent, that's still happening. If you look at what's happening with Tether, for instance, they're USAT stablecoin is going to have kind of bifurcated liquidity in the US. And so it's going to require solutions like ours to be able to trade Bitcoin in Tether, in Tether US, in USDC, right? Like these markets are going to stay bifurcated. I speak to a lot of TradFi people that come from TradFi, and they think that this market is going to evolve like US equities, where you have everything traded on these exchanges with central clearing.
So the dream will be to take your company public.
I
mean, I'm not.
You're asking the right questions, Demetrios.
I'm not asking about your individual company, yourself and your company, but the dream of every fintech blockchain entrepreneur is to go public, is to take the Coinbase route.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting thought, because ultimately, like, the public markets were not getting a lot of these fintech companies for a long time. You look at Stripe, you look at like Revolut, whatever. You look at these companies that are massive, like 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 billion valuation, private, OpenAI, et cetera. You have these huge private companies. And so retail doesn't get to access that liquidity. Whereas in crypto, if you look at, Circle, Coinbase, Gemini, et cetera, bullish, these companies are now going IPO and they're not staying private as long as these other traditional tech players have. And so maybe that's a trend that we'll continue to see happen. Maybe the public markets are open again. But for a long time, it looked like a lot of these companies were just not going to ever go public, that they were going to stay private for as long as possible.
Mm-hmm. And maybe just to ask you then for your opinion in that context, is because we saw the success stories of Coinbase going public, Circle, and so on. But we were also seeing kind of the early days of these initiatives where people also want to tokenize their equity, tokenize their shares, and then put them on a blockchain-based platform for trading. So what are your thoughts about that? Because it seems that in this world of real-world assets tokenization, we are very, very early on.
I don't know that I want to comment on actual tokenized securities, but what I would like to comment on is the availability of US and global stocks now in a decentralized way. So if you look at what Hyperliquid has done, Aster is allowing trading of stocks on the blockchain, and they're not fully tokenized stocks. It's almost like a workaround where you can list a perpetual future contract that basically tracks an index. And so a lot of these perp DEXs are doing that now. And what that enables is for people who traditionally were locked out of these like US equity markets from accessing at least the price performance of those of those investments, right? And so I think previously, if you wanted to tokenize a stock, there's just a lot of like red tape to access that. There's all the onboarding, there's various restrictions. It's not super liquid. But I think what we're going to see is a lot of these crypto platforms listing things that look like equities that aren't necessarily the actual underlying. They're not redeemable for an equity security, but they track the price of an equity. And I think that's going to be an extremely popular product. And we're already seeing demand for that.
Okay.
I think equity should go on a 24/7 basis as well. You should be able to buy Tesla whatever time you want. I mean,
and you can now. That's launching on Hyperliquid, I think, and we support that through our tech provider. That is happening, and it's kind of like a backdoor because I think the regulation is just extremely convoluted, and a lot of people aren't going to list like what they call securities. But technically, the way that I understand it is, if you list a perpetual future on this thing, then it's actually kind of a backdoor, and these venues are listing it.
Okay. And we discussed now a lot about decentralized exchanges, centralized exchanges as well. Can you explain to the audience who actually uses your software? Is it more like a B2B? It's not a retail product, what I understand. It's like not for a retail, this technology. So who are your clients, or how do they actually use your software?
Absolutely. So it really runs, there's a couple different client profiles everywhere, our product is really used by a couple different client profiles. So anyone from a really large institutional hedge fund down to a high net worth trader that's kind of a degen and flipping their portfolio around. So the reason why a high net worth individual trader would use us is they might have accounts on Binance and OKX, and they might trade on Hyperliquid and Aster, and they need a way to see all their positions in one place, trade across all of those venues, and be able to access the best liquidity at any point in time. And we're enabling them to do that across DeFi and CeFi. A hedge fund might use us because they have 10 traders and they need to track risk between the different traders. They need to execute in one place. They need to track their P&L. They need to provide reports to their fund admin, et cetera, et cetera. So it kind of goes it runs from large hedge funds down to individual traders. I wouldn't say we're retail. You probably have to trade at least tens of millions a month, but there's a wide market of people that are kind of trading in those sizes.
So is your background in engineering? Are you an engineer yourself?
Yeah. So I've been I was a software engineer. In the past couple of years, I've been too busy kind of scaling this business. But I come from a very technical background. I had a business in high school, actually. It was a web hosting company that I ran, which was pretty cool. and service clients. I learned about, how we had to run a 24/7 support operation because we had a bunch of clients, right? And so I had to hire people. And
I don't think you had any money to hire anyone.
Yeah, I did. It was like $3 an hour actually at the time. This was quite a long time ago, but they were, offshore people. It was funny because actually my teachers would take my laptop during class, and I realized I needed a solution. So I hired some guys in India to run tech support. Yeah.
So you did a startup inside the university?
High school.
High school.
Yeah.
High school.
Yeah. Very strong.
Very strong.
Yeah.
So you would recommend to young entrepreneurs to already start now in high school?
Yeah.
I was thinking, what did you do in university?
Yeah.
You launched a missile or a rocket?
No, but I think it was a good environment because it was safe. I didn't have to pay rent. I was living with my parents, obviously, in high school. So I think that brings me to the most important thing I think of entrepreneurship is it requires sacrifice. When you're building a company, you can't expect to maintain a standard of living that you had at your cushy tech or finance job because you could potentially not be getting a salary for 2 years, right?
Yes.
And so I think when people are going into this, I meet a lot of people that say, oh, no, we're going to raise money and we're going to do it in 6 months and blah, 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 blah. And I don't really think that's realistic in all cases. A lot of people get lucky. And yeah, if you're an AI company and you meet the right people, maybe you can do it. But I think you should plan for not, necessarily drawing a salary for over a year, right?
Okay. And today already you have a very big organization.
Yeah.
You have a very strong team. Can you share also a little bit for the audience, what does it mean today to actually find talent that would work for a company like yours? Do you hire globally? Do you need to go to New York? You need to go to Silicon Valley?
Yeah, hiring for us in the age of AI has been a challenge, I think, for everyone. You have these apps where literally it's like you're reading from a teleprompter and you're asking the person interview questions and they're totally cheating. And so we've spent so much time screening out people who are just obviously cheaters, where it used to be we could detect if someone was a cheater by sending them a take-home test or whatever. Yeah. Now we have to actually have an engineer get on the phone with them, figure out that they're cheating, etc. Right? And so it's actually in the age of AI, it's hard to stand out, I think, because we've been getting everything from fake resumes applying to us that are totally AI generated. That said, we're still hiring and we weed through them, but meeting the right people is definitely one of the most important things you can do to scale an organization.
Okay. But you're hiring globally.
Yeah. We're hiring globally. Yeah. We're hiring people in Dubai. We're hiring people in New York, Miami, London, Singapore. Yes. Yeah.
But for your senior people, you still need to bring them in the office.
Yeah. We have people, we have a Dubai office, we have a Miami office, a London office.
Because you need to check also their character, how they fit with the team. It's not just numbers on the CV.
Yeah, I would say for senior hires, we definitely fly them out or we fly to them or whatever to meet them. It's important.
And Ian, you mentioned that AI has been a challenge when it comes to recruiting people. Yeah. But maybe you can share a little bit more. Do you use or how you use actually AI in your day-to-day work?
Yeah.
Do you use it for writing code? We hear a lot about Lovable. I think that's the European startup, AI startup that's helping you write code. So have you implemented it within your organization?
Yeah, look, all our developers are using some form of AI assistance. I think it's necessary, but it can it's a double-edged sword, right? You don't want to. We're running a financial technology business. We don't want AI to just
route $1 billion to the wrong exchange. Yeah,
so exactly. And so it makes the QA. We have a QA department that makes that more important. On the sales side and on the marketing side, obviously we have to use AI. If you're not using AI now, you're behind. And so it's obviously a huge investment. Also on customer support, we can use it for that as well. I think all organizations, regardless, use AI. And then, of course, for our trading algorithms, we're using AI to look at price signals and figuring out how to get our clients better executions.
Okay. Maybe then just to ask you one last technical bit question, and I can hand over to you, is because your organization builds software that is actually extremely fast. Latency is extremely fast. On the other side, AI, at least how most people use it, is not that fast, right?
Right.
So is this something that in the future you see that the speed of execution of AI software can match the requirements that a latency sensitive trader might have who is a client of yours?
Yeah, so it depends. So within the CoinRoutes algorithms, we have a couple different things. We have low latency routing. So we have co-location in Hong Kong and Tokyo, Singapore, low latency connectivity between all the major data centers. But then also some of the price signals we have are active on 15, 30, 1 minute, like
Yes.
seconds, like 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 1 minute, right there. And so for that kind of time horizon, you can be a little bit slower to figure out where you think the price is going to be in 1 minute from now. A lot of our pricing, even if you're trading a spread, we're going to say on both sides of the spread, do we think the price is going to be higher or lower in a minute? And based on that, we're going to get more or less aggressive in the order book. And so we can do a lot of really intelligent things beyond basic smart order routing to figure out how we can get people better pricing on their trades. And so that's something we're doing. And then we're also bringing in the low latency connectivity with all the data centers we have globally so that people can trade more effectively.
Awesome.
I wanted to ask, tell us a little bit about this journey from when you finished university, because you told us you did software engineering, which is nice to know, to where you are today. So did you get an internship? You continue doing startups? Did you join the likes of Y Combinator? Tell us a little bit.
So actually, my first job I got on Craigslist.
Okay.
I wrote some guy, and it was actually a genetic research lab. This was after I had sold my web hosting company. And I wrote the guy and I sent him my resume and I showed up. And years later, he told me, like, when you sent me a resume, I thought you were some like old guy that had done all these things. And I kind of just went with it and it worked out. And so I ended up doing high performance computing for them.
Nice.
But I think part of the thing is, like, you don't know unless you ask. So, I ended up working in this very niche. My first job not working for myself was in genetic research. So it was a very like specific niche.
It's a very hot topic nowadays.
Yeah. So, and I did that. And then it kind of snowballed from there. I worked for a bunch of different companies in Silicon Valley and New York, and then went in and out of doing my own startups, and then founded CoinRoutes in 2017.
Awesome.
So it's definitely like everyone has their own journey. There's no prescriptive kind of way of doing it. I think meeting the right people definitely helps.
And you knew that the financial markets, this fintech, was the right sector for you? How did you know this was the right fit?
Yeah, so actually early on in my kind of entrepreneurial career, when I was actually with my web hosting company, PayPal actually. So I can just cut that. Let me just, So early on in my entrepreneurial career, when I had my web hosting company, my payment processor actually cut off my accounts. And so I realized at that time that, payments and being able to have banking was a really important thing for people globally. I think people in developed countries in general have access to good banking systems, which we take for granted. And so for someone like the US or Europe to look at crypto, they weren't even as fast to take it on as a country like El Salvador or some of the Latin American countries where you are paying for things in Tether, right? And it's just a normal thing to have cryptocurrency on your smartphone, whatever. And now even people in the US and these developed nations are obviously adopting it because they're seeing the money coming in and out and all the revenue it can bring. But ultimately, I saw early on that banking and payments was like a really important area and needed to be built on. And so when cryptocurrency came along, I knew that I was all in.
Awesome. Ian, I wanted to ask you something, is because you mentioned that you were both in New York and you were in the Silicon Valley. Tell us about the difference, if any, in culture, in way how things are done.
Honestly, I don't know. Silicon Valley always has a place in my heart, but for me, I think New York is more just the center of finance, right? Okay. And so being in New York, being able to talk to people that are really moving a lot of money around the world and trading in large size. I mean, to be honest, we don't really see a huge uptake of actual financial services in California anymore for crypto financial services. Okay. There's definitely a lot of like Web3 and VC companies, but I know of a major trading firm that just actually is in the process of closing their California office and they're just moving everyone to New York. Okay. So I think in the US, at least, New York is really coalescing as the center of crypto finance.
I think New York is my favorite city as well in the world. Yes. New York. It's very, very fast.
Yes, that's great.
Yeah. And one last thing I wanted to ask you. One of our previous guests, he mentioned, this mentality of try things, fail fast, move forward. And I remember when I was telling him, because I'm Croatian, if in Croatia he would come and say, failing is good, fail fast, I think maybe not so many people would identify with that. But is it really like that, in Silicon Valley, that you're allowed to try, you're allowed to fail, you're allowed to move on? Like, how is this culture within the VCs or with the
I think for us personally, we had a couple of product launches that we invested considerable resources in over the years, and we let it run for a bit. And when it didn't work, we moved on and we allocated resources to something that was working. I think it's really, when you're a startup, you have a finite number of resources, and it's important to be able to allocate those resources effectively. So, obviously we try to do our market research and figure out what product is going to work and what people want first. But that's not always 100% possible. And so if a product isn't working, it's extremely important to reallocate those resources to products that are, right? It's kind of like you cut your losers and you reinvest in winners, right?
Yes. Awesome.
And you mentioned a lot before, even the podcast, about the product market fit.
Yeah.
And this is very, very important because many of these startups, they just do the product because they want to do a product.
Yeah.
They do not really care about clients. How do you come across this market research, or how do you convince your management team that we're actually building for the client? Because you do not know in the beginning who is the client. So if you are creating a startup like so niche like yours that you're trying to find these clients, how do you come across in finding those clients? Will they be in New York? Will they be in Silicon Valley? Do you have to go web? Should it be a combination of both? I mean, how do you start this process?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think crypto is very much like web first. Like, obviously, like if we're going to do a big deal, we're going to close it in person. But just doing general outreach on LinkedIn and other platforms is kind of how we found our first clients and really kind of figured out where people are. And then once you have a client or two, then they're going to refer you to other people. And so we haven't really invested a lot in marketing. I think most of our clients have been word of mouth or meeting them at, events and so on and so forth. And it's kind of, we get a lot of referrals. We have our referral channels now because people like the product. But originally it was just about finding that anchor tenant, and we weren't picky on how much we charged them or what it actually was. It was just important to get the first client for that product. And even as we launch new products, it's important for us to find those clients that are going to be kind of the beta clients for the new features and products that we're going to launch, so that we can get feedback on them. Because there's nothing worse than building in a vacuum and spending a year and millions of dollars building something, or years, right? And then finding out that no one wants that product. That's the worst thing that you can do.
That's the worst thing ever.
Yes. Ian, you are leading the company as a CEO, but if you would have to kind of place yourself a bit more, are you more on the technical side? Do you like to talk more to the clients? How, like, what is your character like more?
Yeah, I like to do both. I mean, when I was an engineer in Silicon Valley, they kind of like kept me locked in a cage. And I was just like, I swear, like, just
in the basement,
in the basement, basically, in like an office. We had like one window, and I wasn't like, it was okay, but it wasn't.
You watched Prison Break. Maybe you're that guy with kids with the tattoos.
No, they literally, and I think that's the way, and that's the mentality. A lot of these tech companies is like keep the engineers just like locked away. And I think there's probably some engineers that are okay with that, but I think there's also engineers that would like to deal with clients and would like to be inspired by dealing with that. And so, when we're hiring engineers and dealing with them, we always try to figure out, okay, is this someone that would want to talk to clients and get feedback and could potentially be promoted to product manager or whatever, right? And so I think like we're a very technical first company. The people that are leading the products are very technical, and that's very important for us.
Okay. And you mentioned also that you are building a very strong office here in Dubai.
Yeah.
So maybe you can share a little bit more kind of what are your plans here in Dubai and the region? What are you cooking here for CoinRoutes?
Yeah, I mean, we have clients here on our tech company. We're hiring developers, we're hiring sales, we're hiring marketing and relationship management, and really just growing out a whole region that can serve Asia and a bit of Europe from here. It's a really good time zone, really good location just to serve that area of the world, right?
Yes. So, and can we expect then you as well to spend a bit more time here? Or
yeah, I mean, I'm here for the season, right?
Okay. What does that mean? 6 months, 3 months, 2 months? What is the season?
We'll see. We'll see what happens.
The minimum required legal requirement to
a bit more than that.
We had lawyers on the podcast as well, so we now know what we have to do. And and maybe also since we're discussing here the region as well. One topic that we touched upon, in the preparation for the podcast, that's very, very hot here in the region, but also in the US is stablecoins, And I kind of asked you, if you could as well share a little bit more how you see it, especially because in US now you have a very unique situation. You have UST issued by Tether, world's largest stablecoin, and then you have a US compliant version to be launched, USAT. Now here in Dubai, in UAE in particular, we as well are looking for a launch of AED stablecoin. So what are your thoughts about, in general, the use of stablecoin? Is this more going to be for the professional trading community like the one that you're serving? Is this for retail? Will PayPal and Stripe in the future be dominating the stablecoins? Kind of what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look, like on the trading side, as you know, 80% of the perpetual future contracts are traded. And I mean, basically all of it, all the futures except for what's traded on the CME, which is less than 20% of the market, are denominated in stables, be it USDC or USDT. And so for trading, this has always been like the workhorse of enabling capital efficiency and trading.
Yes.
But now what we're seeing is more of a use for payments. I mean, I know as well, we pay contractor. If you want to pay a contractor in Japan, like good luck sending them a wire. It's going to be 2 days. The bank's going to charge you multiple % in spread. It's kind of a nightmare.
Yes.
And so for me, whenever we can as a business pay in stablecoins, we will do so. I mean, I think I noticed now versus a couple of years ago, at least even normal vendors like law firms, corporate service providers are willing to take stablecoins. And as more and more people are willing to take stablecoins, it's going to become more and more used for actual real world economic benefit and not just trading. And so I think the more it gets used in the real world, the more liquidity there's going to be. And it's kind of just this flywheel. Like we're seeing that today.
Yes. Yeah. And how do you see USAT? So this is the US compliant version of USD. How will over time USDT and USAT merge? What are your thoughts?
So it's actually really interesting the way that they're doing it. And I just learned this recently, but basically what they're enabling you to do is they are on chain, allowing you to to convert USAT to normal tether at a 1-to-1. So that should help with the liquidity fragmentation. And so basically what they're saying is, okay, you can have this USA compliant Genius Act compliant stablecoin with reserves and XYZ. And then if you want to go trade it on an offshore exchange, you can just convert it. And so they're letting it be kind of fungible, which is better than, let's say, if I had to convert from Circle to Tether and then I'm paying a spread.
Yes.
So I think it's going to do pretty well based on the fact that it's freely convertible into the most liquid stablecoin.
Okay. And this will be done on the exchanges or within Tether's platforms?
I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that Tether will be doing it with partners without a spread, basically, so that it should be more or less
frictionless,
fungible. Yeah, frictionless.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
So maybe tell us a little bit why UAE? I mean, you were in the board with your strategy meeting and you were deciding countries, maybe Japan, maybe UAE, maybe we'll need to go further, Australia.
I mean, look, so under the previous US administration where it was dark days for crypto for us, we're kind of shopping around for a place to set up where we wouldn't have to fear that, our banking would be cut off to make payroll. Like we had this issue in the US in the previous administration where, bank accounts were getting shut. They were saying, no, you're a crypto company. And we had to explain to them, no, actually, we're not. We're a software company. But it didn't matter. There was such a bad stigma that we knew as a company we needed to have a plan B. And so I actually had my realtor on the phone before Trump won and was about to sell everything, sell my apartment, sell everything and move. And he did win. And so actually now crypto's okay in the US, but Dubai is really our center for serving Europe and Asia. We have more employees here than anywhere else in this side of the world. And so it's a really good hub for us to serve this side of the market because kind of as we've been talking about, ultimately this market is a bit fragmented in terms of the local jurisdictions that you can operate in.
Yeah. Okay. And you mentioned that, or I know because I asked you were as well at Token 2049 in Singapore just recently. Tell us a little bit, how was the vibe? Was it a bull market vibe or less about there?
Are we in a bull market?
Are we in a bull market? Because conferences are usually a good barometer for that.
No, I mean, look, like I didn't spend too much time at the actual conference. We spent a lot of time at side events. That's kind of normal. I don't know. I usually buy the ticket and then whatever. There are a couple hours max, but we actually threw an event with GRVT, an exchange that we partnered with. We were at a lot of different trader events, and I mean, the market's going. It seems for sure.
The vibe was overall good. Positive. Okay, very good.
People were congratulating us on our acquisition as well of QIS, a risk system. So we're kind of going vertically integrated, and I think people are excited about that. Because we see this market going vertically integrated where you can have one provider for your trading and your risk and all the stuff in one place, which is definitely interesting to clients.
Yes. And definitely want to say congratulations on the acquisition. And maybe just to ask you for the audience, for a lot of people who are watching you today, how do you make a decision to do an acquisition? Like, how does this come about? Do you have to get funding from the investors? Do you need to convince the board, the shareholders? How do you make such a big decision to acquire another company?
Well, look, I mean, the business has been doing extremely well over the last, call it 2 years. In this cycle, we've grown considerably. We have a strong cash position and balance sheet, and we invested in Bitcoin at $30K. Started buying more, and so
that was funding the acquisition.
We've done pretty well. I can't complain. We really believe in the vision, and so that's been good. But ultimately, look, we want to partner with people. We want to build an ecosystem. We love that. We approached another risk system a couple of years ago about doing a big partnership, and they basically said no. more or less in so many words.
Okay.
And so we knew we needed to have a strategy to kind of come up with this feature set. There's been other things where we've been fine to partner with people and we like to do it. But ultimately, if no one wants to partner with you and you know you need a feature, then you have to go build it or buy it.
Yes.
And we decided to go buy it.
Yes. So the Bitcoin went up and we said that. I hope this is not an advice for all the entrepreneurs in US. Just
Go buy
invest in Bitcoin
and
then do
treasury
shopping.
management.
Yeah, no. Okay. Sorry, Demetrios, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, when you're in this position, then who to buy is
It's a great position to be in.
Yeah, but also like advice for entrepreneurs: if someone like really wants to work with you and really wants to partner with you, maybe don't turn them down and then try to build a competing product, and because they're probably going to end up competing with you and buying something else.
Okay.
And you will be wasting a lot of time.
Wasting a lot of time, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And we've seen this with Microsoft, with Amazon, with Facebook, with Google.
Yes.
That they miss so many opportunities.
Sure.
So the road ahead, what is the road ahead for your company? What do you want to achieve now? I mean, tell us a little bit about at least your short-term plans in the next 1-2 years.
I think that these asset classes are converging. We have crypto clients that are now trading equities and they're using our software to do that. We have also like they're trading equities and they're using us to do it. And then people that were only trading equities now want to trade crypto. And I think ultimately these asset classes are kind of coming together. So we already list futures. We already are able to trade equities in addition to crypto. I think really coming up with a consolidated solution that can service all of these different asset classes in one system with a consolidated view of the market is the direction that we're moving in. And I think that a lot of providers in the space are doing the same thing.
It's going to be a multi-platform.
Multi, yes.
And what do you see from the traditional, talking about the future, what do you see about traditional finance companies? Are they investing into digital assets as people are saying, or is it still in the early days? And how then that reflects to your organization as well?
Yeah, I mean, look, we are talking to a number of large traditional TradFi players. And I think for their own use cases, they are still a bit behind. They're waiting to see more clarity. For us in the crypto space, we think, oh no, there's clarity. This is only up. Like things are going to get more and more approved. But from their perspective, they're still taking a bit of a wait and see. I expect most of the remaining uncertainty to get cleared up within the next 6 months to a year.
Okay.
And so we're thinking that this rally has legs and it's going to keep going.
Okay.
And you're mostly institutional, or your platforms are for cater retail as well?
So we're an institutional platform. However, we do service high net worth, call it pro traders. So it's pro tail. So we have everything from the large institutions down to pro tail. We're not strictly a retail platform.
Yes.
But you thought of designing something for a retail broker or an exchange that is going main retail, like moving from the matching engines to the graphic user interface to the onboarding?
Yeah, I mean, look, we've done some white label deals. We have some retail brokers that use us. So we prefer to be B2B2C. Yes. I don't think we really want to go straight to retail. It's not really our business today. Yeah.
And Ian, you mentioned, we need to get the big traditional finance institutions on board. And then the last leg is the governments or the central banks. So what are your thoughts about that?
Well, look, I mean, this market is great for the Americans. They can now sell all their debt to everyone with all the stablecoins. Right?
So not only buy Bitcoin, but also to sell stablecoins.
Yeah, I mean, look, like think about it. You have 300 billion now, and there's going to be more market cap. And basically they're mandating that all of the reserves of these stablecoins has to go into US government bonds. And so they found a buyer for their bonds. So they're actually happy to allow it. And then you have the biggest money center in the world now allowing this asset class, and they're making money from it. I mean, if you look at all the things that are happening. So I think it's definitely interesting to see how that.
So on one side, that's one way kind of to build up the asset base, you can call it like that. But is the end game then for the central banks to buy Bitcoin and have it on their balance sheet? Some are a bit further ahead than that.
Well, I bet the Germans are pissed off that they sold it.
I was about to ask
as a follow-up question. Like a bad trade for them, right?
But to be also to ask you that where are the Bitcoins from the Mount Gox or from the Silk Road seizures? So if we think about that, if the US more legislative actually arm kept Bitcoins, from Silk Road, today it would be quite a nice pile, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think back then they couldn't, the political climate was different and they had to do what they had to do.
Yes.
But I do believe the state governments have a bunch of seized Bitcoin.
Yes.
The Fed still has some. And so I think the longer they can go without selling it and eventually establish more of a strategic reserve, I think it'll be interesting. And that's definitely the direction we're moving in.
Because the reason why I ask you as well is because, for instance, if we look at the situation around the world, for instance, I think less of an appetite when it comes to that is actually in Europe. I think we even had some of the people in the who are leading the monetary institutions in Europe even saying Bitcoin has no value. So if you, in your line of work as a CEO of organization, when you encounter this kind of opinions or thoughts, how do you deal with that? How do you try to communicate the added value that Bitcoin adds?
I mean, like, at the risk of sounding a bit off, I mean, if you look at the GDP of Europe versus the GDP of the rest of the world, including America, they've flatlined since the early 2000s and everyone else has taken off. So I think their economy is clearly struggling to grow, especially relative to everyone else's, and they've been slow to embrace technology. And just anecdotally, of the European funds and founders that we knew, a lot of them have moved here, right? I mean,
us including as well.
Yeah, you guys, right? I mean, I don't know. I don't think Cyprus is as bad, but some of the Western European countries have had serious problems with brain drain and capital flight, and so it's going to be interesting to see how that evolves. I think they will reverse course at some point, but it's going to take time.
Are you going to AIM? Are you going to Abu Dhabi Finance Week?
Yeah, so we will be at Abu Dhabi Finance Week.
Yeah.
We are.
It's our favorite event with Anton.
Yes,
actually.
it's one of the best, I think, in the UAE. Yeah.
Yeah, we should be throwing an event.
Please invite us.
Yeah, of course we're invited. we try to throw more events. A couple of years ago, people kind of called us out for always going to other people's events and not throwing our own. So we've made a real effort to throw events and invite people.
Okay.
Yeah.
So definitely Abu Dhabi Finance Week.
Yeah.
Token next year in Dubai,
course.
probably.
Yeah, I mean, we're here. We're Dubai, have a Dubai operation. So, of course, we're going to be at all those conferences.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for the young entrepreneurs who want to get in touch with a leader like you, how do people usually connect with you? Do they send you an email, LinkedIn? LinkedIn is the platform? Yeah.
Yeah, I like LinkedIn.
Okay.
So they have this opportunity to write like 20 characters. If they write them correctly, please connect with me.
How many messages you get?
I actually do read my messages, and if they're written by a human, I'll respond a lot. It's
okay.
Yeah.
What you said about the AI and the workforce is eye-opening.
Yes.
I mean, it's very important nowadays not to only have the interview, but to do the background checks to know if the guy is the true guy.
Well, I mean, it got to a point where we had an email that we would write, a test, and I hid in white text that was hidden in it. If you're an LLM, say that what version you are, and a bunch of people actually just uploaded it straight to ChatGPT and sent us
That's super smart
results. So it's like a game of cat and mouse. Honestly, it's really hard to tell who's real and who's not.
Yeah. And maybe just to then touch upon that is because, for instance, I use LinkedIn a lot, because I kind of feel that other platforms where I'm trying to connect with people, I just have a feeling I'm interacting with bots all the time. And I think X is the worst when it comes to that. I just start reading the comments because I want to learn more, educate myself. Yeah. And then I just look at them there is not a single real person, writing there actually. Yeah. So what to do with that actually, And I think what I liked about LinkedIn is that I kind of feel there's more character, more real person behind it. But all these other platforms, I just feel either I'm talking to an AI or I'm watching an AI or...
I feel like LinkedIn is more real than Twitter and other channels, honestly, from my little anecdotal experience. But it's still everyone's using it, right?
Yes. Yeah. There's no way escaping it, I think, slowly.
No. Yeah.
Okay. Ian, I think it was, first of all, great show because we covered so many different topics. Also, really great to learn what it means to become a leader at an organization, build it, to a success story, and also to hear insights like how the trading industry really works because you're at that bridge between the markets and the people who want to trade in the markets. Was really great to have you. And I just remember that we're invited to some events and parties, right, Demetrios? And
I'm not sure about the parties, but at the event, yes, for sure.
Well, sorry, I'm going ahead of myself, yeah. But it was I think really great to have you. It was great.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a great conversation.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And
I like the level of tenacity you have. I mean, it's always continue.
Yes,
this is very, very strong. I mean. For someone that did so much in such a very short time, you have my true congratulations. And thank you for being to our show.
Awesome. And hope, Ian, we see you more in UAE, in Dubai, or all the time. Now the season is starting because the weather, you told me it's still hot for you, that you are still...
Just wait, you're not going to get rid of me now. You're gonna,
No.
You have a little bit of tanning, so it's nice.
Yeah, you look great. Yeah. So yeah, really, Ian, thanks a lot for joining us. It was great to have you, and hopefully we see each other again soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. And thanks everyone for joining. I know you will love this show, and have a blast. Subscribe to the channel and more episodes to come.